Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of The Development Project. We've got an exciting one for you. We got another guest with us today. I'm going to let Tristan introduce her, and then we're going to get right into her backstory and some other exciting stuff for the podcast.
Thanks, Caden. Yeah, we have my friend Erin Clark. Fun facts about Erin. She's my longest tenured friend since I've lived in Indiana. She probably doesn't even know that, but everyone that I met in those first few months, they're not really in my life anymore. And so Erin's been in my life for well over 6 years now. So very, very exciting. We have a good relationship. In fact, we have multiple facets of our relationships that we're going to dive into today. Another exciting piece of today's podcast, a reason why we brought Erin on specifically, is that with our development project, we have the development athlete, which we've hit on many, many times. We have development coaching, which we have a few podcasts now out about that. And then today we're actually doing the development team training, which is really, really exciting because here in just a second, Erin's going to let you know a little bit about her background as she is a coach for female soccer. And so that's just going to be a really, really cool piece to discuss with her. But we're really, really excited to have her with her today. And I'm going to send it back over to Caden for a quick plug.
All right. For the first time ever, we have a sponsor for the podcast. For those of you who are watching us on YouTube, you can see that we're all wearing these really cool t-shirts. We are sponsored now by LRX Apparel. Okay? LRX, one goal, one purpose, to make people better versions of themselves. So what does LRX do? They sell challenges in the form of athletic apparel that adapts to your active lifestyle. Every collection they put out has a challenge to stand united, a challenge to build a brighter perspective, a challenge to actively pursue progress. So let's do it together. Visit lrxapparel.com, that's lrxapparel.com, and take up the challenge by using code LIVEPRESCRIBED. That's LIVEPRESCRIBED for 15% off your purchase. So for those of you who can see what we're wearing t-shirts from the new Simple collection. It's a really, really cool. These t-shirts are like, what would Heber say? They're buttery soft. You'd want to spread these on some pancakes. They're so smooth. I love them. They're really great. I have another one of the t-shirts too. It's from their United collection. We talked with Ryan, the owner over there at LRX. They have a mission that's pretty similar to ours. Love fitness, love athletics, all that kind of stuff. They're out there to do the same thing that we're doing through our show. So we're excited to have that as a partner and as a sponsor for our podcast. So make sure you guys head on over, use that code, and get yourself some swag.
Awesome. Thanks, Caden. Yeah, another thing that we love about LRX is just living prescribed. So for a lot of you who do CrossFit, right, we do things RX, quote unquote. And I love their mission because just like what we want to do with people long into their years, staying healthy, doing the things that they love, it's kind of the same mission that they have there. So moving forward, we're going to go ahead and let Erin speak. She's just going to give a quick background for us on not only her athletic background, but then a quick background also on coaching.
All right. Well, thanks for having me. Just a couple things real quick on my athletic career. I started playing sports at a very young age because I had an older brother. And so we lived in Germany, and Germany was all you did is play street soccer like you do basketball here. And so he would let me go with his friends, and I kind of got really involved in soccer. That was my main sport. I also played softball and basketball and ran some cross country, but soccer was where I spent most of my competitive time. I played in high school in Pennsylvania, and then when we moved to Indiana and I enrolled at New Pal, they only had a boys team. And so that was a new adventure for me. So I was a captain of the boys soccer team for 3 years at New Pal. And then I went on to play at Iowa State University for a year and transferred to the University of Indianapolis. During my senior year, and then the year after, I played a little bit of semi-pro in Indiana. We used to have a team called the Blaze and the Blast. It was a semi-pro team. Semi-pro meaning you don't get paid, but you did get to give autographs afterwards, so it was pretty fun. So I played that competitively, and then I started running marathons and doing things like that, which eventually led me down the road to CrossFit.
Yeah, so this is why we do podcasts, because I didn't even know that about Erin. I didn't even know that she lived in Germany. I feel like such a terrible friend. But that explains a lot about soccer now. So thank you for that. So our pieces that we're going to talk about today about Erin and myself, our relationship. So they really expand over four different categories. One is we've become really, really good friends. And I'll just be honest, that's not how it started. We actually started because we each had the same likeness of CrossFit, competing. And we found that not only did we like to compete against one another, but then we figured out how we could take that and be a team and then compete against other people. So teammates, training partners, then we became friends. And then now over the years, I have developed into a coach, and I have been Erin's coach for a long time, actually. I would say coming up on 5 years. And then the really cool piece is now we're taking each of our professional gifts. One for Erin is soccer, obviously, and then the other for me is CrossFit or strength and conditioning, and we're collaborating on those things. So it's been a really, really cool relationship that we share. And then soon, I'll be a dad, and we're going to have that relationship as parents. So she's going to be someone I come to all the time for questions, stuff like that. So really, really cool. The first place that I really want to dive in with Erin is kind of, again, that coaching collaboration. So what Erin and I have been able to do over the last, 3.5 years, I think, when you were at Greenfield, is you invited me to come do strength and conditioning with the girls.
Yep.
And just speak a little bit about that. Why did you want that? Why did you choose that?
Yeah. So I coach high school at New Pal now, but I was at Greenfield for 6 years. And a couple years in, it was injury after injury, torn ACL after torn ACL. And then I was in the weight room trying to get the girls in shape and trying to lift weights, and didn't always know exactly the right route to go. So that's when I enlisted your help to kind of get them going in the weight room. And I think it really motivated them because there was more of a plan. They could you worked their way to 1 rep maxing, and you knew what to do with them. I didn't always know what to do. I was like, hey, let's do some back squats. Let's do something. But you came in and really put a program together that really helped them. And we saw immediate difference on injuries, so far less injuries. And actually that was our best season. That first year that you came and helped us, we were 1 game away from going to semi-state. So, I mean, it was a huge difference. And I think that just seeing the impact there that first year really motivated the girls, because they knew that was the biggest difference in what we had been doing before.
So does that extend sort of, how do you see what has transpired with the personal training for the team? How does that directly affect their sport-specific skills in soccer for some people who might not see how that transitions over?
Right. And I mean, I've seen it now. I'm with a different group of girls now, but I have seen the increase in speed, the increase in strength, and really the injury prevention is the huge thing. I mean, ACL tears in girls soccer is huge. And it's been a while since that's happened, since we've been doing the training. And interestingly enough, there were a few girls who weren't involved with our training very much. And they were several of the girls who did tear their ACL during the season. So I think that was when we knew we kind of had something going, not just so they're running harder, they're more confident, they're stronger, but the injuries, that was a huge piece of what we were doing.
Yeah, and that's not even for people who, we're not saying CrossFit specifically has to be the solution to that.
Right.
It's just in general, if you're listening to this podcast and you're any sort of high school coach or high school athletic trainer, you need to be getting, especially girls, on some sort of prevention program for their knees, because volleyball, basketball, and soccer are 3 of the biggest ones where you see ACL tears and non-contact stuff too. It's not like they're getting slide tackled.
Most of them are non-contact, but I think that's the important thing as a coach, a high school coach in general. If you look at most of our coaches, they're sport specific. They know football, or like me, I know soccer, or baseball knows baseball. I don't know that other aspect of injury prevention and fitness and the weightlifting. I don't always know how to incorporate that. So it's great for coaches to reach out and find other people who can help them with that, because as high school coaches, we're so sport specific.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so how do you take some of those sports and those physical skills and touch on the mental aspect of high school soccer? Because being a CrossFit athlete yourself, you know that it takes a specific amount of grit. You kind of have to have that ability to turn on something to be able to get through some of those workouts.
Yeah, I think that's something Tristan and I saw just in that first season when I was at Greenfield. We did not have the most talented soccer team. And Tristan didn't know soccer as well. I didn't know the fitness part as well, or the the CrossFit part, the weightlifting. But we realized that was not the strongest soccer team we had ever had. but they far outshined any team I had ever coached because of that. And I think just sometimes when you get in the weight room or you get doing partner workouts, like he was setting up a lot of partner workouts with the girls, and learning how to push through those workouts translates right into the soccer field. When you're tired, you're in the 80th minute, you've got to play hard. Those times in the weight room and those times that Tristan set up the workouts really helped their mental aspect towards the end of the game.
Yeah, I think anyone who's ever played sports before, it's sometimes you look at teams and the way that the roster is constructed at the beginning of the season, we already make our decisions based on who's going to win the championship or blah, 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 blah. But going back to your injury prevention, I mean, that's the big thing. If you don't have that same roster at the end of the season, you're not going to fulfill what you as the team thought that you were set out to fulfill. We see that in sports all the time. A little bit of background on Erin. So I think that this is very important since Caden brought up grit. Just explaining how we really did meet. So we were going to the same CrossFit gym for a long time. And you've already expanded on the fact that you were a soccer and cross country runner. So it's nothing not to say that you're really good at cardio, really good at endurance. And ironically enough, when I came into CrossFit, I was in the military. So all I did was body weight stuff. I was running low 5-minute miles. I was very good at running. And what I love the most about CrossFit that's really grown me as a person is really seeing women equally. And I know that people might not think that that's a thing, but before that, men didn't compete against women in anything. You just don't. The NBA is the NBA, the WNBA is the WNBA, right? Like sports, it's not common. And what was so good about CrossFit is that you had your prescribed weights, I had mine. Everything was fair, and we could actually compete against each other. And so I remember that I knew I was good at running. And all of a sudden I got to a gym where somebody was as good, if not better than me at running. And I really didn't like that. It didn't matter who it was. And it was Erin. And she would beat me at burpee workouts and box jump workouts and running workouts. And I had always won those workouts. But if there's always been a joke between Erin and I that she's sometimes a little uncoordinated. And so when teaching her a new skill, it does take some time. But when it comes to just getting after it, grit, mental toughness, there are few and far between people that I would ever put in front of Erin. So it really does translate. That's the cool thing for me too is, I get to create these workouts. I know the science. I know the understanding of the strength and conditioning. But it's the things that you also get to teach the girls about that mental toughness side. And what's cool is you're doing what you preach. Right. So you actually do these things. You were a Division I soccer player. That's what they want to be. You are a BA mama right now, and that's who they want to look like, and that's who they want to emulate and stuff like that. So it's super, super cool. And I've had literally front row seats to that for a really, really long time. So that's a little bit about our friendship, a little bit about the coaching with the girls and stuff like that. Now I'd actually like to transition over to you literally as a mom. You have two boys, close in age, competitive, and stuff like that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Will and a little bit about Jax?
Okay. Yep. My two boys, William and Jackson, are 10 and 11 and are ridiculously competitive. I'm sure it's from me a little bit. My husband was an athlete as well. He was a college baseball pitcher. And so the competitiveness runs strong with them, sometimes overly competitive. But I started them with Tristan. Has this been the second year now that they've been coming to you? And it kind of just started out as William and Jackson. And then they kind of started picking buddies up along the way. And now we have 7 kids, and we've probably had a total of 10 or 11 who've come in and out, and some aren't ready to handle it, and, and so forth. But the kids love it. I mean, they absolutely love it. They love coming, and they do want to lift a little more weight. They're always like, when are we going to use that bar, Tristan? When are we going to use that bar? I want to use the bar. And you've done a little bit with them with the weights, but
yeah, we have a technique bar for those of you out there. It's 15 pounds. We don't generally load it up or anything like that. It's just, and we're actually going to talk about that here in just a few minutes about, how we approach younger kids and older kids and what that looks like and stuff like that. But yeah, we still let them move weights. Right. It's just a different kind of stimulus for that. A little
more with dumbbells and so forth. But I just noticed a huge difference, even on their athletic teams. They play hockey, basketball, baseball, soccer. soccer, they have a lot of that grit that you were talking about. And I think a lot of that they come into CrossFit and they're sweating their butts off. They're working hard. They're like, oh, they walk out the door and they're like, we're going to need some rest when we get home. I mean, there have been a couple kids along the way who haven't been able to, they're like, oh, we sweat too much there. We work too hard. And I think that directly correlates into their sports. They put in a lot of work. They're usually kind of the workhorses of their team. I like to, when they're there, I'm there, they're seeing me work out. They know, like, that's what we do. That's what our family does, is we work out. I think when they see me doing it, it motivates them a little bit more to do it as well. But I think that, and I'm all about the injury prevention too. And if we can get them, obviously my one son is quite a bit small. And so he loves that CrossFit.
Quite a bit small.
He loves, all those boys that come, they look in the mirror at their muscles, they take off their shirts and they're like, am I going to look like Tristan? And so, they love that aspect of just feeling good about themselves. And that's super important for kids, even at 10 and 11 and even boys, because a lot of times we think that's just girls, but it's important for them to feel good about themselves. And I think CrossFit really does that for them.
Yeah, it builds confidence.
Absolutely.
And it helps them when they get into their sports and they realize, like, wow, I'm faster than these guys finally.
Right.
Like, this is really paying off.
Yeah, and even Jackson, like I said, he's quite small. He's the smallest kid on his baseball team by a lot. And, he's smashing the ball. And he will say, like, it's because I lift weights at CrossFit. Like, he really thinks, and I truly believe it. He is a tiny guy, and he's hitting the ball really well, better than some kids who, are 100 pounds more than him. So I think, and he just feels good about that.
Yeah. So other than your boys, did you notice in any of the others, was there any sort of like, we need to build confidence? They came into either their training or they came out of their other sports. They maybe just kind of carried themselves in a way that was like, I don't know if I can do most of this. And that it kind of I'm going to ask that about the girls too, because I want to know if there are any either spoken or unspoken expectations that you have for the athletes that you work with.
I think with the boys, there are a couple, like my kids tend to be like a little more like me. They like the cardio, they're good, but you get them something heavy and they're like, ugh, which is how I feel. But then there are a couple of the boys who come who it's time to run and it's time to do burpees and they're down on themselves. But then Tristan pulls out the D balls and they're like, oh yeah, this is my thing. And so having understanding that they have some strengths and some weaknesses, but they feel good about themselves. Like, I can lift that and he can't, and I can, because I might not be able to run as fast as he can, but I know I can lift weights. And so just understanding everyone has strengths and weaknesses, and even if that's your weakness, you have something over here that you're good at, I think is good. And I see that with the girls too. That's all the girls on our team, and we've got some strong girls. Some of them have motivated me. 100-pound D-ball, I hated the 100-pound D-ball. I wouldn't even pick it up. And then these little girls are coming in and picking it up and throwing over their shoulder. I'm like, well, now I've got to do it. And it's the same thing with the girls, strengths and weaknesses. And they realize it. And I think it just brings a lot of confidence.
Yeah, I think for both the girls and the boys is what we've seen, and we're not going to say any names, right? It's not necessary. But the point is that really there's two. There's probably more, but there's two kinds of athletes when it comes to confidence. More or less, one maybe is a little overconfident, and one that's a little underconfident. And obviously, our main objective is to always bring kids who are not confident in themselves. Immediately establish that confidence. Figure out what it is that they need to accomplish in that day to immediately build confidence, because if you can do that 2 or 3 times, their training will go through the roof, and it's so important for kids to find their potential. It's not good enough for a coach to find it for them or tell them, I think you can do this. When they can finally pull back the curtain and be like, I see what you're saying, I see, like, you finally can unleash something that's truly potent. Yeah. And then I would say the second one is we have another confidence, and it's more cockiness, and it's bringing them back down. It's literally almost, for lack of a better term, like just wrecking them first and bringing them back down to a baseline. Right. And then building their confidence back up. Because sometimes if you're so aloof to the fact that you think that you're so good at this or you deserve this, right? Erin and I talk about it a lot, entitlement right now with kids. Right. It's kind of one of those things where, like, if you've just been entitled and said that you're so good or you deserve this, you've proven nothing to me. as your coach or as your trainer, you've proven nothing to me that you are deserving of anything. And so I think that that's the grit factor, right? When you can really show hard work, that confidence will start to build back up. And you'll be a better teammate. You'll be a better person. I mean, it'll literally show how you treat people and things like that. But the good thing is like it's showing kids that don't be blind to the fact that you're overconfident in a certain thing.
Right. And touching on something you just said reminded me with the girls. I mean, remember the time that you wanted to have them do a GHD, and one person did it, and everyone else was like, "Well, I can't do that." And by the end of the class, everybody had done a GHD. So like just building the simple confidence. And then something else you had touched on, the girls, I think a big thing with the girls coming to your training for me is the team building. They get in teams of 2 or 3 and somebody's struggling and somebody else picks up the ball and lifts it over their shoulder and says, "Hey, I got your reps for you. Take a break." They start to figure each other out. They start to trust each other. They start to learn each other's strengths and weaknesses. I mean, if you come in one of our sessions at the gym, I mean, it's encouragement all around. All 18 or 20 girls are encouraging everybody who's working out. Maybe not even their teammates that are on their team, but maybe a team next to them. Like, "You got this." Or if somebody finishes early, they're encouraging everybody else. So some of that team building, I feel like we've established a really, that's really helped show in the regular season too. When they have that whole summer, the whole off season where they're constantly encouraging each other and pushing each other, then they do it out on the field as well.
That's super important for team sports. And that's the cool thing I feel like about CrossFit, because even though it's an individual sport most of the time, people still have this sense of like, I want to cheer on and support the other person that's doing whatever. My last season of high school soccer, I would say the best team that I ever played on was my junior year. We had an amazing class of seniors. My class was stellar. We had an awesome team. But I would say that the most successful season for me was my senior year, because we had to take a bunch of older guys and literally a bunch of freshmen on a varsity squad and find a way to bring in these kids that we've never hung out with, never done anything with, get them to feel like they're important and they're part of the squad, and get that cohesiveness. And we were a lot more successful than I'm sure the paper probably would have suggested. So I think it's incredible when you can take, especially a team of girls, because sometimes girls can be a little catty with each other. I've seen it happen. I was a high school athletic trainer. I know what it's like. So having this sort of environment to just keep pushing that team aspect, I think is super important.
I agree 100%. And we've had incoming freshmen there this summer. And so I think that's been a huge help for them, because we weren't able to start practice until July, but we were able to start CrossFit in June. And so they were coming and kind of felt like part of the team and already getting to know people. And you've got the seniors encouraging the freshmen or the incoming freshmen. And that's a huge confidence builder when you walk out there on the field that first day, but you've already been working out with these girls for a month and they've included you and they've encouraged you. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah, putting 2 points together. So one, doing team workouts, it's extremely powerful in a number of reasons. But then 2, also what we talked about earlier about understanding where your strengths are and where your weaknesses lie. So a lot of times, there's different ways that I can create team workouts, and one of them is everyone has to do their equal work, right? And that's good because a certain part of the off season, it's about getting everyone better. Even if someone's already good at something, they can get better at it. If someone's super weak at something, we need to bring them up a little bit. But it also gets to a point where you want to teach your athletes that it is okay to take more work from another athlete. Baseball is the one that I always think of the best, because you literally can have a below 200 hitter, but he is there for some reason. He can obviously play defense really well, or he can do something, right? Then you get batters around him that can bring up the team average, right? And you can get strategic and put them somewhere in the lineup. But what's important for the girls is sometimes, opposite of being catty, they're almost too nice. They're like, oh, yes, I don't want to take their reps. I don't want them to feel bad. No, your teammates, you help them out. You're better at this than them. Do it. And because in a game, right, there's going to come a time where all the girls, they can't be expected to be equal at everything.
Right. No.
Whether it's leg power, getting to the ball, taking better angles, whatever, leading a pass, something like that. Like, somebody's got to know, I am better at this. This is my job. This is my duty to do that.
How do you teach the girls to handle losing?
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a really good one.
You want to know why that's a good one? Because Erin doesn't take losing very well.
As a coach, losing's rough. Rougher than as a player. Gosh, on losing nights, I'm up all night thinking, what can I do different? How are we going to run practice tomorrow? What did I do wrong? Who did I play in the wrong position? The group of girls I have they're amazing. I mean, Tristan knows that, but it's rough. Losses tend to motivate this group of girls. So we have a big thing where after games, the next day at practice, we do positives and encouragements, and they can say things that each other did well. And so even after a loss, we do that. So, hey, we did this, and then we do, what can we do better? And so I think we try to not stay down on the loss, but what are we going to do now? And I think that's a team mentality that my team is really good at. Yeah, when they walk off the field, especially when we're playing Mount Vernon or Greenfield, it's tough when you take a loss. But they're pretty quick to bounce back and say, what can we do now? How are we gonna make sure that doesn't happen again? And I think that's a big thing with CrossFit. I mean, the season didn't end how we wanted last year, and they were ready to put in the work. I mean, they were begging, I was like, we have a few weeks off. No, we got to get to CrossFit. No, we got to start working out. So I think losing kind of motivates them to work harder.
And in any type of team loss, if you have a team dynamic where there's blaming for bad things, that have been on teams like that before, you know, we don't have a great game, and there's always that guy that's pointing the finger like, dude, you should have nailed that shot. Like, and what the heck?
We just don't have that on our team. And I really do. There are a lot of times where I don't know if it's just getting together at the gym and doing CrossFit or our other off-season workouts, but they're really positive with each other. And there's not any of that blame game. And there's even not, I mean, I've coached some teams where if you don't get the playing time that you want, it turns into a problem, but they encourage each other. Whether they're on the bench, whether they're on the field, if they get subbed, they're like, oh, okay, now you go in there and play hard. They really, and I don't know how much we can attribute that to what we do at the gym, but it's better than any team I've coached. And we've really put a lot of work with these girls in at the gym. And so I'm sure it correlates pretty well.
Something that I would say helps is sometimes taking the sport in which you do and kind of throwing it out the window for a few days and what I mean by that is like seeing something that there is an even playing field. So I've talked to you about this. I sometimes don't like for you to tell me who your best players are. I don't want to know, because I'm going to tell you who the hardest workers are after I work with the girls. And sometimes it is crazy, but they're not the best players. Because if I fielded, I'm so sorry about my soccer knowledge, it's 11 players?
11, yes.
Woohoo! Go Tristan. So if I had to label who the 11 players were, I'm very interested to see if they're the different players than you would field on the field. So it gets very, very interesting. But all I mean by that is like going back and cheering people on and stuff like that. I think that going away from soccer for just a little bit and getting back to we're all sweating equally. We're all working hard. We're all doing skills that none of us are used to doing. We're all learning things for the first time.
Right.
Whereas, I mean, let's talk about socioeconomical things. Like soccer, not everyone can start with a club, or, you know, like when did you learn it? Have you been doing it longer than someone else? You know, like it is one of those sports that I would say, at least in the US, it's climbing. Like you have to have a little bit of money to do that traveling stuff with soccer and stuff like that. So some of these girls, they get into freshman year and they're like, cool, I'll try this sport. I've never done it before. And then what's crazy is we had a few at Greenfield, 2 of them, I would say, by their junior year, they earned that playing time. Like they got better because they were good athletes and they learned quickly. And again, some girls, they go into high school thinking, I've played soccer for 6 years. I deserve, that entitlement piece. But yet they'll get outworked in just a normal strength and conditioning session.
Last year we had a player join us. She came out, it was like a week in, because we needed more players. We were low on numbers, and she'd played basketball. She'd never touched a soccer ball. She's probably going to be a starter this year in her second year of ever playing soccer. So, but she's a hard worker. She understands athletics. She's an athletic kid. So yeah, a lot of times that don't necessarily have to be a soccer player. You have to be an athlete.
Cool. I think this next one's going to be an open conversation for all 3 of us, because I think we all actually have a very good insight, but possibly differently. And what I want to kind of transition our conversation to is, how do we, as coaches or mentors to athletes, how do we approach young kids, so think elementary, and how do we approach high school kids, and what does that look like differently? I know for me, for several years, my younger kids have just happened to be boys and my older kids just happen to have been girls, but I have dealt with both. So Erin, let's just start with the sport side for you, and especially with your boys being one and then your girls being much older, just kind of how do you coach them differently?
Right. Well, I try to stay away from coaching my boys, which is why they come to Tristan and not me. But I think with the younger kids, you got to have a little, not that you don't need to have fun with the high school kids, but you've got to make it just a little more fun with them. And I think you do that with the boys. Not that the girls aren't fun, but the girls, they're training so that we can win at soccer, or they can become better at soccer or basketball, or whatever sport. They might be a multi-sport athlete. They're training to become really good at that sport. Like my kids, they do want to be good at sports, but I don't know if they really have that mentality yet of I'm at CrossFit because I need to get better at baseball. I think they're at CrossFit because it's fun. They want to see their muscles and they think that it's fun to go work out. Does that make sense? So I don't think they're at that point of understanding if I come to CrossFit and I work really hard, I'm going to get better at baseball. But I think the girls really are like, I am here to get better at my sport.
Do you see anything else at play outside of the motivation to be better at sport, especially in your team? Do you notice in any, you don't have to name them, but any specific girls that like maybe they have some other motivations behind just being better?
For sure. I mean, I think the girls enjoy just the camaraderie at the gym, but we even have a girl coming this summer. She's already graduated. She's going on to college next year, and she asked to come back because she just wanted to be with a team. And so she's there to work out because she loves being around the team. And I think that's a big thing for the girls too. They do look forward to coming and being with their friends and being with their team and creating that atmosphere that we want, not just to get better at their sport.
Yeah. And I'm assuming that that's not much different for yourself either. That's why you come to train. You want to be around your team.
Right.
So talk about some of your experiences in either, team workouts as you're one of our development athletes. You're also a master's athlete, and you've done competitions before. I've been in a competition with you. I think the first time that I ever met you was at the competition that we did in Kentucky.
Yep.
And you were one of the runners for one of our running workouts. And I was like, she's back already? Oh my. I can't keep up with this. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, I think I started CrossFit originally because I had torn both my meniscus running. And so I was looking for something different to try. And as I got into it, I was like, oh, this is competitive. Because I was running marathons and doing other races, again, to compete. And I was like, oh, this is competitive. And then I started meeting like Tristan and Meg and Ryan. And we kind of had like our little group at the gym. And we would talk to each other about what time we were going to meet. And like as an adult, especially as you start to have kids, you don't have like that social time like you used to in college and high school where you were just hanging out all the time, doing whatever. And so that kind of became my social time. But also kind of fed that competitive drive. So then we started entering competitions. I mean, I can remember first competition I did with Meg. We're like, we got this. And in the final workout was 95 pound power cleans. And I was like, who do they think we are? How are we going to lift 95 pounds?
I believe Erin can power clean 175 now. So
I mean, it was I remember. Oh my goodness! But I think that's what drives me a lot of times is the competitiveness. And I feel like in the last couple of years between soccer and just kid things with my kids playing sports, we haven't got to do as many competitions as we would like. But I think that's what drives a lot of my training too, is just I love to compete. And even like today when I asked Tristan, how many burpees did you get in the workout? Like, not that we're trying to like beat each other, but it's, you try to have that little bit of that competitiveness that you get when you train with other people.
Yeah, I get a little bit. I never get to work out with you, to be completely honest, because most of the time when you come to work out, it's early in the morning.
Right.
And
you're coaching.
I don't really get to work out super early in the morning most of the time. But a couple of weeks ago, Tristan programmed a workout that had a crap ton of running in it. And it started off with a 1 mile run. And it was basically, it was you and me and a bunch of other people. And I was like, if I'm going to have a good mile time, I might as well just stick with you. And so you just like shot out way faster than what I thought. Because you were like, oh, I don't know how this is going to go. And I'm like, okay, maybe she's not feeling it today. Nope. 3, 2, 1, go. You're just booking. And I'm like, geez, I got to get my long legs to actually keep up with you. So then you pushed my pace to start that workout, and it
Yeah.
actually drove me to want to be better.
Right, which
throughout the whole
you were a
thing.
little bit ahead of me at the end, and then we both came in and looked at the clock and went, "Oh crap, that was too fast. That rest of that workout is not going to be fun," because I don't even remember what the time was, but it was way faster than we wanted to
I
run.
think it was like 6:30, something like
it
that.
was too fast for masters athletes.
I feel like I have so many comments right now. First of all, the Kentucky comp. I was her partner on that run, and that sucked. That sucked. She killed me. She drove me into the ground on that, but we did get first place. We did get first place on that workout.
Yeah.
2, okay, I don't know, because I don't want to sound I don't think it's a woman thing necessarily. It just so happens to be the women in my life. But Erin, Becky, Carly, and Laura, you love to play this game where it's a win-win situation. So that is literally like blueprint Erin. Oh, I'm really not looking forward to this run. Like, oh, it's going to be bad. And now if it's bad, then cool. She said it was. But if she beats you, oh yeah, beat him. So it's like taking the pressure off of her. Anyway,
Maybe-
that's like a
oh,
typical
wow.
female thing at our gym, I feel like.
I feel like I'm at a psychologist.
Yeah,
you just looked into my
100%.
brain because I don't feel like I do that, but now I'm wondering if I do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I can't even remember really where we were at. We were kind of talking about high school athletes and stuff like that, but then also Caden asked you just your background with like competing and stuff like that. I think going back to what you alluded to with younger kids, it is absolutely imperative to keep it fun, really for as
Right.
long as you possibly can. And I think that the smaller the groups are and the more that you understand them, it's just like what you said. I don't care if you're a high school kid, professional athlete, you're in your 30s or 40s, you still should keep something about that fun. I know it's few and far between sometimes on the development athlete because we do have such stringent goals and we really hold the bar high for ourselves. But you know, like again, whether it's our Facebook group or talking about the workouts after, or literally just going out and having fun together, doing something else, like that's our way to do fun. But kids, CrossFit kids, you know, I have a certification through them. And they separate their ages from 5 to 11 and 12 to 18. I'm not saying I think that that's a pretty good age, but it's not saying it's 100% correct either. So for me, like 5 to 11, it's about almost fooling the kids into not knowing that it's a workout, right? And just more of a game. Whether you need to change even what a word means, meaning burpee, change it to get up, get down. You know, just something like changing the terminology to where they're not scarred by those things. You and I think it was you, I hope. We discussed just the other day of like how I don't like to punish my athletes.
Yeah, we did talk about that.
However, if I'm actually going to punish younger kids. And here's my why for that. Because generally, and again, I need to see what they're doing. But if they just need to be taught like better discipline or better things like that, I do think at a younger age, it is important to set those ground rules. That way they don't carry that into, and then they have such bad habits that it's really hard. For the girls specifically, but just older athletes, I kind of tend to do, and I took it from the Mighty Ducks, Coach Conway, or whatever. Yeah, I can't remember his name now. But I took it from him, and it's kind of being like, you know what, we're just done today. If you're not going to bring it, we'll just be done. And I think that as older kids, like, they don't want to disappoint you. You already said your girls learn more after a loss. That's facts in all sports. More people, if you're dedicated, you learn more from a loss. Failure is key. You have to have that happen sometimes. You know, I think of like the greatest Duke Krzyzewski teams. He loves it when they lose because it teaches them so much. That's a teaching lesson. You know, we think about the greatest people ever in sports, Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, all those people, they have those failure stories, and they're almost the most powerful stories that you can really take from them and learn for yourself. It's no different in CrossFit. If we're pushing for a 1RM or we're trying to beat a time or a score or something like that, like it really stinks when we don't hit it, but we're dedicated enough to it. We want it bad enough that we're going to go back to the drawing board and figure out what have we done wrong. And sometimes it's not even the hard stuff. It's I didn't eat enough. Like we talked about that the other day. That's probably Erin's number one problem. She doesn't eat enough. I wish I had that problem. I eat too much. Other people, it's sleep. And sometimes you can't fix that, right? We were talking about that today, about to be a new dad, and it's not going to get any better from here, you know? So it's just one of those things where like you need to go back and you need to figure those things out. But I think for kids, it's also understanding what their goals are. And as they get older, they'll get more what defined is maybe what I'm trying to think of. Whereas like, you know, I could ask the boys right now, every single one of them would tell me they want to be a Major League Baseball player. Absolutely. They want to be a Major League football player. I want to be the next Pat Mahomes. That's a real broad thing. Like, and it's not very goal oriented. It's not very specific. Whereas the girls, scholarship. I want to go play at this local college. You know, it gets more specific. Right. And as a coach, you can really start to help pave the way for them once you really understand what the goals are that they have.
Right. And just kind of piggybacking off that, girls playing soccer, over the last several years since we've started working together, and we've had some girls go on to play college soccer, the fact that they've been doing CrossFit with you has put them so far ahead when they get to school. Multiple girls who are, you know, they'll come in and they'll have a fitness test. As freshmen, they're winning the fitness test. They're beating everybody. Or they're going in the weight room and they're not lost and confused and not understanding how to lift weights. They've done that. They're going in as freshmen ready to go. And that's been huge. A lot of girls have mentioned, like, I walked in as a freshman and didn't feel far behind because I had already been in the weight room. I was already in shape. I didn't have to worry about that kind of stuff.
I would assume that all of the girls on your team probably look up to you as a role model, as someone who keeps themselves healthy, keeps themselves fit, cares about the things that goes on in their lives. How do you view yourself as a role model to them?
Right. I think the biggest thing for me is I have a hard time with coaches who coach but can't like walk the talk. You know, you can talk, but can you walk what you're saying? And for me, they come at 7:30 to work out with you and they see me drenched in sweat, dying. And Tristan, he went over yesterday, asked coach how long that workout took. And so, you know, making fun of my workout. But I think that they see me pushing hard. They're going to do the same. They understand that here's where I'm at. Here's how I push myself. And I expect that from you too. And it goes the other way. Like, okay, we see her doing that. We need to be at that level. And I think, that's huge, rather than a coach who's just sitting on the sideline telling them what to do and not being able to show the girls soccer things and being in shape enough to do that. And as a master's athlete, still being able to, you know, play soccer with them, jump in a game with them because I'm staying healthy. And we've had conversations with them about food. So we try to encourage them with how they're eating and their other habits, not just physical, not just working out. I think that's a much harder sell for high school kids, trying to get them to eat healthy. But so then I try bring food to the games, make sure they see me eating healthy. We're not eating junk, trying to give them encouragement about those kinds of things too. So hopefully they'll want to do those things as well. Yeah.
And what other lessons are you trying to teach them just as young ladies other than sport?
Yeah, definitely. We've talked about that quite a bit, Tristan and I, just being that it's okay for women to work out. For so long, right? How long did women, when I got to college to play soccer was really the first time I'd ever been in a weight room, because girls didn't go in a weight room. The football team went in the weight room. And just understanding that girls can be strong, and it's okay if you're strong, and it's okay if you're a good leader. And just encouraging them to be leaders among their peers too. A lot of times guys tend to step into those roles, but you're seeing more and more girls as we had a girl on the football team this year, right? Just seeing that they can do things that they want to do, and it doesn't their, sex doesn't have to define them.
And Erin, I don't think you said it, but you played on the boys soccer team growing up, right?
I did, yes.
What grade level was that?
I moved to New Paltz my sophomore year. So my sophomore, junior, senior year.
And were you starting any of those years?
All of those years.
That's
yes.
what I'm talking about.
And actually, I was a defender, like on my travel team and for college. But in high school, he played me in the center mid because he'd say, "Well, you're our best player. You got to run the team." And I was a captain. And playing on the boys team for those 3 years completely defined my soccer game from there on out, because they did not take it easy on me. There were games where I remember my dad having to come over and like carry me to my car because I had just gotten the crud beat out of me. Because once I beat a guy, then they're like, "We're coming for you." And so, there was a lot of that, but it really did. My grit, we were talking about grit after playing on boys teams, that really
I don't want to get off script too much. I know I didn't ask you this question through text, but Can you kind of tell us how you were treated? How did boys treat you outside of competing? How did they treat you in school?
Like on my teammates?
On practice? Definitely
Yeah.
your teammates,
You
but then
know,
talk about other teams too.
Other teams, I mean, I got beat up quite a bit. And my dad would walk behind the goal before the games and say to the other team's goalie, she's going to score on you. Of course, I'm sure that didn't help. But my teammates, I didn't have any issues playing. And I don't know if it's because I was a more talented player. But when I came on that first day at practice, and actually my assistant coach right now was on my soccer team. He was our goalie my sophomore year. And now he's back coaching with me. I didn't feel any different, honestly. They treated me very, very well. I will say I dated a few soccer players along the way.
That's nice.
That's funny because usually you feel like in the movies, it's like the girl's like, oh, I'm dating the captain of the football team. And like one of your boyfriends is probably like, I'm dating the captain of the soccer team.
Yeah. So I did have several dates with soccer players, but really they accepted me from the beginning. They really did.
That's really good. I wanted to get that perspective because, again, our last episode, we had a moment with Abel being a black male in today's society. And, you know, he just spoke very honestly from his heart. And he said, you know, I don't see the racism that other black people see. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just doesn't exist in his life. And he doesn't see it as much. And so just with what's going on in the world right now, specifically, literally surfacing all over social media right now, is women empowering women with everything that's going on in Turkey and the abuse and the murders and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So I just really wanted to get your feelings. And, you know, again, it's just another random but ironic insight that you didn't grow up around that. You know, and yeah, of course it's always nice when you're good at sports, but you know, the truth, that's not what we're talking about here. It's that you were in a community that did that. And again, not trying to preach too much about M4G, but it's just one of those things that I am so happy and proud about that, you know, obviously that does start with Becky and I, but it's just gone down the ladder to everyone. And especially on the development athlete, you know, I know Andrew Smiley, he is so good at making women feel good about themselves because he puts himself down. But what I mean by that is, you know, like we have men who encourage women at our gym and you said it earlier, actually, you know, we're never really trying to beat each other. No, we are. We're trying to beat each other. But what's important about that is that it's a respect thing.
Absolutely.
If I'm asking your score, it's not because I want to be like, and rub it in your face. It's because you are someone who is worthy enough to me for me to be like, did I get close?
Right. That's
am
how
am I as good as I think I am?
That's how I judge my workouts.
Right.
If I'm close to Tristan, then I've probably done okay. If I'm really far away, like Tuesday's workout, then I probably need to get it together.
Yeah. And so I just think that that's a really, really cool insight from you. To Caden's question, I would actually like to answer this as well. And I don't want to get into a fuss about what this means. I think that where we're at right now, Caden and I have spoke about this, you know, white males right now. It's just time for us to sit back and really educate ourselves and understand where everyone's coming from. But again, for me, women have always played a huge role in my life. The closest people in my life is my mom, grandma, sister, my wife, and then no joke, like you really are one of my closest friends. And Caden's a good friend of mine too, but you've been my closest friend for a really long time. And some people might think that's weird. I don't really care what you think. My wife and Artie are good with it, and that's what I care about. So, you know, it's just one of those things where for me, when Caden asks, you know, what do you try to teach your girls? I truly believe that we are in a world and a society where women can't just learn from women. Boys can't just learn from boys. There are men out there who need to take action, and I'm not saying tell women what to do. But teach them what a man needs to be like, right. How they need to be treated, how they need to be valued. And it's one of the greatest things that I get to do. Do I love making people sweat and be in pain? Of course I do. Love my job. But one of the most powerful things that I get to do is really help them understand how a man should love a woman, or a woman should love a woman, or a man. That's not what I'm getting to. I'm just saying that we all have our place, and we all have an ability to make someone feel good about themselves.
Right.
And then lastly, just I think with that is in a world where women may see other women, specifically on social media, and body image is a huge thing. And you talked about eating, but the one thing that I would actually like to think that the girls are prepared for in college is more than just beating other athletes at workouts, but actually understanding what proper nutrition is from day one when they walk onto a college campus.
Yeah.
Because that's not something I knew.
No.
I ate
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A and Taco Bell up until my senior year. I mean, that's just Buffalo B-dubs, holler, right?
Yeah.
Half
Oh, yeah.
apps at Applebee's, anybody? Okay, that's what I ate for all of college. And so for me, it's like that's the power that I want to send off to all kids, but specifically our soccer girls. Like that's what's important to me. When they come up to me and say, Tristan, I just don't get enough protein, and how much...
Right.
Oh my
You're
gosh,
like,
my
yes.
heart's just fluttering right now. Like I'm just like, oh, I love that, And so, but it's also the last piece is valuing yourself physically, and how you view yourself. You don't have to be a woman into society who has to show their skin. You can, that's your choice, but you should be comfortable in the way that you want to present yourself, and you shouldn't have to feel like you're presenting yourself to make somebody else happy or make them value you.
I think that's a good point that I didn't touch on earlier when we were talking about the girls' value of coming to see you. But body image is huge for girls. I mean, high school girls, that's huge. And when they are coming to CrossFit, and obviously they all look very different, and all of their body types are different. And I think they realize that like we have some really strong girls, and they're like, it's okay, I'm strong. Like they feel they are like, I'm using my body, I'm strong. They're great soccer players. They go into the season knowing they're stronger. I think they feel better about who they are when they walk out of the gym. I really do.
Cool. I think to close things out, I want to ask you if you have any last piece of advice that you could give to anybody out there who, might be a coach that's seeing over an entire team that might feel like they need to change some things up, or maybe another masters athlete who is at an age where they feel like things might be changing for them and it's difficult to work out. Like, what are some pieces of advice that you want to send out to our listeners?
I think a big thing for coaches, and it was hard for me at the beginning, but to realize you might need help. I think that was the biggest thing. I thought, I'm a soccer coach, I'm a high school coach, I got this. I got girls running sprints, we're doing this, we're stretching, we're doing this. But to just find people in your community who can help you get to that next level is really important as coaches. We might know our sport, but we don't know everything else. And it used to be, back when I played high school soccer, we didn't do off-season. There was no off-season training. There was no mention of nutrition. There was no strength training, never. So all those things are out there, and if you're not using them, other people are. And it's what really I think is putting our program ahead and our girls ahead, and not just in soccer, but in life in general, and feeling confident when they're going to go off to college, and they just feel better about themselves. They're better leaders. They feel like they're better teammates. They're better people. And you don't, sometimes you might not think, like I didn't think about that when I first started coaching soccer. I'm a soccer coach. My goal is to make them better soccer players. But as we moved into what we're doing, it's more about molding young athletes, young students, young girls into becoming better people, better leaders for their community.
Lovely. Thank you, Erin. We loved having you here to talk with us. Thank you, everybody, for listening. As a quick reminder, head on over to lrxapparel.com and use code LIVEPRESCRIBE to get 15% off your order of some awesome stuff. Be sure to leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes, and we will catch you in the next one.